We are starting Macbeth Act 1, Scene 5. Scene 5 is the first time when we are meeting Lady Macbeth's character. So, already we know that Duncan has proposed to stay for a night at the palace of Macbeth. Macbeth has already left Forres and has started his journey towards his castle in Inverness, and he is eager to inform his wife about the prophecies about the plan of Duncan to come and stay with them, and therefore he has written a letter to Lady Macbeth which she is reading in this scene. So, as scene 5 starts, we see that Lady Macbeth enters the stage while reading a letter that has been written to him by Macbeth himself. So, Lady Macbeth is now reading, it is within quotes, as you can see. They met me in the day of success, and I have learned by perfectest report they have more in them than mortal knowledge. So, obviously, you can make out that they here means the witches. The witches had met Macbeth on the day of success, that means on the day when he won the battle, and he has realized it that the witches know more than mortal human beings do. So, they know superhuman things. When I burned in desire to question them further, they made themselves air into which they vanished. So, when Macbeth was eager to ask questions to the witches, instead of answering him, they disappeared into the air. Whilst I stood wrapped in wonder of it, came missives from the king, who all hailed me Thane of Cawdor. While Macbeth was totally lost in his ruminations, in his thoughts about the prophecy of the witches, just at that moment, two messengers came from the court of the king, and at that time it was Ross and Angus who had come and pronounced that the king had hailed Macbeth as the next Thane of Cawdor. By which title before these weird sisters saluted me and referred me to the coming on of time with Hail King that shalt be. So this title of Thane of Cawdor had already been given to me by the witches before Ross and Angus could come and pronounce it, and those same witches had said that I would be king of Scotland after this. You see, Macbeth is using a term weird sister. This is a very interesting word because today, when we use the word weird, we mean strange. But actually, Shakespeare is using the word weird in its original sense, which means destiny or fate. Macbeth is calling the three sisters, the three witches, as the agents of destiny or the agents of fate. That is why he is referring to them as weird sisters or fate sisters. But some Shakespearean scholars, they misunderstood the meaning of the term weird, and they started believing that weird sister means the strange sisters. Because of their appearance, because of their behavior, the witches were strange. That is why some scholars thought that weird sisters would mean strange sisters. This have I thought good to deliver thee, my dearest partner of greatness, that thou mightest not lose the dues of rejoicing, by being ignorant of what greatness is promised thee. So Macbeth says that I thought that I would write a letter to you, my dearest wife, my dearest partner, so that you also can enjoy the success, you also can enjoy the feeling of being successful, which I am doing right now. This shows what kind of bond Lady Macbeth and Macbeth share in real life through this dialogue. Lay it to thy heart and farewell. He ends the letter. The letter of Macbeth ends with the expression that whatever I have told you, please keep it in your heart. Don't reveal it to anyone. I will meet you and discuss the rest of the things. Till then, farewell. Now, Lady Macbeth starts her own analysis of the situation, and this is very, very important. Almost, I would like to say, the whole scene, the whole monologue of Lady Macbeth, because nobody else is present in the stage, so she is basically delivering a soliloquy. So the whole soliloquy of Lady Macbeth is very, very, very important for explanation, so you can underline the whole thing. Glamis thou art, and Cawdor, and shalt be what thou art promised. You are already the Thane of Glamis, I know that, and you have already become the Thane of Cawdor, and I am sure you will become the next king as it is promised to you. Yet I do fear thy nature, underline it is too full of the milk of human kindness. Lady Macbeth says that I know you have everything in you to become the king, but still I am afraid of your character, I am afraid of your habits, your nature, because you are too full of kindness. Now, Lady Macbeth uses a brilliant phrase. She says, milk of human kindness. Why has the term milk been used here? Milk is often associated with the mother and the caring, loving nature of the mother. It is a source of nourishment for the child in the first few years of his life. So, milk is always something very nourishing, very loving, very caring, very motherly. According to Lady Macbeth, Macbeth has this loving, kind, motherly nature inside him. He is too soft, too gentle to be a murderer. That is what she is meaning by referring to the term as milk of human kindness. To catch the nearest way, thou wouldest be great, art not without ambition, but without the illness should attend it. So, Lady Macbeth is now assessing the character of her husband. She says that I know you would like to follow the nearest way, that means the shortcut to success. I know you are ready to follow the shortcut to success. I know you want to be great. I know you want to be big, but you are not ready to be big or great by using some unfair means. You are afraid of using any unfair means. That is what she assesses about the character of Macbeth. Now, why I am repeatedly saying that this is Lady Macbeth's assessment, this is not our assessment as the scholars, as the readers of Macbeth, because as we proceed with the drama, we will see that Lady Macbeth was absolutely wrong in assessing her husband as well as in assessing herself. She thought her husband was very soft, very kind-hearted, but this same Macbeth will continue doing one after another murder brutally, and he will also be able to bear the guilt of that murder. He will not become mad at the end of the story. But Lady Macbeth, who thought herself to be very strong, who thought herself to be very powerful and bold from inside, is actually very weak, and that is why her mind at the end of the story will degenerate and she will become mad. So, you are not without ambition. You have the ambition to attain something great, but you are afraid to use some wrong means to attain that ambition. What thou wouldest highly, that wouldest thou holily. What you want very deeply from your heart, you want to get that by following holy path, by following the correct path. Wouldest not play false, and yet wouldest strongly win. You want to get a position which is not your due. You want to get something which is not your due. You want to wrongly win that position. But that wrong position you like to reach by using a right way. You are not ready to use a wrong way to get the wrong thing. You want to get the wrong thing, but in order to get that wrong thing, you like to follow the right path. That is the fault with Macbeth's character according to Lady Macbeth. Thou wouldest have great Glamis, that which cries, thus thou must do, if thou have it, and that which rather thou dost fear to do, than wishes should be undone. Whatever you want to do, you are not very bold in acting quickly, and though you have a deep desire to attain something in your life, but you lack that boldness to achieve that target. Hie thee hither, underline, that I may pour my spirits in thine ear, and chastise thee with the valor of my tongue, all that impedes thee from the golden ground, which fate and metaphysical aid doth seem to have thee crowned withal. She says, "Hie thee hither, come here, come you here." She is calling Macbeth so that I can pour my nasty spirit, I can pour my evil spirit into your mind through your ears. How is she going to pour her spirit? Obviously, through her words. She is going to speak something, she is going to give a prep talk to Macbeth, which is going to change his mind completely. So she says that, "Come here so that I can influence you to do the murder by giving my opinion, by giving my feelings into your head through my words." And she uses a wonderful figure of speech here once again. This is again a metaphor. She says, "Chastise with the valor of my tongue. I will fight with you, I will defeat you with the power of my tongue." Normally people fight and defeat each other with the sharp sword, the power of the sword. But Lady Macbeth does not want to use the sword to defeat her husband. She wants to use her tongue. She knows her tongue is as sharp as the sword itself. So she is ready to fight with her husband with the power of her tongue. And she is ready to remove all hurdles, all difficulties that is in between Macbeth and the golden round. What is the golden round? The crown of the king is the golden round. So Macbeth wants to get that crown, but he has some doubt in his mind. Lady Macbeth will speak to him and wash away all his doubts. "Which fate and metaphysical aid doth seem to have crowned thee withal." So the golden round, the crown which it seems that fate has destined for you, which seems metaphysical aid, that means supernatural creatures, has decided to place on your head. I will do anything to get that crown on your head. Now Lady Macbeth's character is very, very interesting here, because as you keep on reading about her, as you keep on knowing her more, you realize that Lady Macbeth is a villain, no doubt, but she is a very selfless woman. She has no selfish motive behind this. She does not want to be the rich queen of the castle. She does not have any aspirations for herself. All she wants is to establish her husband into the throne, because she thinks that her husband can be happy only if he becomes the king. So whatever she is doing for the sake of her husband. She has no personal goals to achieve in this game. Just at that moment, a messenger enters the stage, and Lady Macbeth asks, "What is your tidings? What is your news?" The messenger informs Lady Macbeth, "The king comes here tonight." So the messenger has come before Macbeth, and he has brought the news that Macbeth is going to bring. That is, the king has planned to stay at their house for the night. Lady Macbeth says, "Thou art mad to say it. Is not thy master with him? Who were so would have informed for preparation?" Lady Macbeth is surprised. She said that my husband just wrote a letter to me, and he has not mentioned that the king has any plan and proposal to come and stay with us. So why are you saying this? I did not get any warning. I have to prepare the house because the king is going to stay. It's not an ordinary guest. It's the king of Scotland. So I need to have a special preparation for that. Why didn't somebody inform me before? The messenger tells Lady Macbeth, "So please you, it is true, our Thane is coming. One of my fellows had the speed of him, who almost dead for breath, had scarcely more than would make up his message." So the messenger says that my lord Macbeth is coming behind. One of his fellow soldiers had been able to overtake him. Speed of him means to overtake him. So and he came so fast that he is absolutely out of breath at this moment, and he has given this news that the king is going to come and stay with us. Lady Macbeth says, "Give him tending, he brings great news." Go and attend that man who is out of breath because of coming so fast. He has brought a great news. Again, the soliloquy of Lady Macbeth starts. The messenger leaves the stage, and Lady Macbeth says, "The raven himself is hoarse that cracks the fatal intents of Duncan under my battlements." This is a very confusing dialogue. Lady Macbeth basically says the black crow which announced the arrival of Duncan to my castle may look very ugly, as it is a black crow, so it looks ugly, But the news it has given is wonderful. So the news the crow has given is very wonderful. What is the crow all about? It can be the messenger. Maybe the messenger is very dark and very ugly looking. That is why she is calling the messenger a crow who has brought the information about Duncan's arrival. Or there might be an actual crow which is sitting at the top of the palace and crowing. And it is believed that the crowing of the crow is a hint that something bad is going to happen. So Lady Macbeth is predicting that the crow is crowing because Duncan is going to have a fatal time, a deadly time under her protection. Again, very important line, underline. Come, you spirits that tend on mortal thoughts, unsex me here and fill me from the crown to toe top full of this direst cruelty. She calls the evil spirits from hell to come out of hell and fill her full body from her head to her toe with the direst cruelty. Shall we here assume that Lady Macbeth lacks that cruelty in her character? Perhaps that is why she is calling the evil spirits to come and help her. Maybe after all, she is not that bad. After all, she is not that wicked. Therefore, she requires the support of the wicked devils of hell to fill her body with the poison of cruelty. Make thick my blood, stop all access and passage of remorse, that no compunctious visitings of nature shake my fell purpose, nor keep peace between the effect and it. She says that she requests the evil spirits to make her blood thick. Now, biologically speaking, you know that the blood connects all the body organs with the heart. The impure blood pumped from the various parts of the body comes to the heart. The heart purifies the blood and then pumps it back to the organs. So, now you think about the literary idea. Heart is the seat of all emotion. If the blood becomes solid, if the blood becomes thick, emotions will not be able to reach the heart of Lady Macbeth. Lady Macbeth is afraid that after killing Duncan, she will be trapped under guilt. So she wants her blood to be made thick so that the emotions like guilt, sorrow doesn't come to her heart. Her heart is not choked with guilt, so that she wants her blood to be thickened. Compunctious visitings of nature, that means the natural feelings of sympathy and guilt which anyone may feel after committing a murder. So she doesn't want these kind of soft feelings come and shake her purpose, her determination to kill Duncan. Come to my woman's breast, underline again, and take my milk for gall, you murdering ministers, wherever in your sightless substances you wait on nature's mischief. So she says that, she again calls the evil spirits and says that remove all feelings of womanliness from my body. She is again using the idea of milk. I told you milk is a symbol of motherliness, love, care, which we associate with a woman. She does not want to have these motherly, woman-like feelings. She wants to be a cruel character. So she calls the evil spirits and says, take the milk from my breast and feed that milk to the seagulls. That means the evil creatures that hover over the sea. Take my milk for them, because I don't want any soft feelings, any sympathy, any guilt in my body. I want to change myself from a soft, loving woman to a cruel, ruthless murderer. Underline, come thick night and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell, that my keen knife see not the wound it makes, nor heaven peep through the blanket of the dark to cry, hold, hold. So she, just if you remember, Macbeth had once said, stars hide your fires. Macbeth wanted the stars to darken everything so that nobody can see what is going on in his mind. Lady Macbeth is echoing his words. She is saying the same thing. She says that come dark night, come dark smoke of hell, and cover everything on this earth, so that God sitting on heaven will not be able to see what dark plan is going on in my mind, what evil plan is going on in my mind. Nobody should be able to see that. Even the gods should not be able to see that. That is why everything in this earth should be covered with a dark layer of smoke to separate heaven from earth, so that nobody can see the wound that her knife is making. Even her hand should not see that. And it is such a deadly thought, it is such a deadly idea, that she is afraid that even if gods see from heaven, they can come and stop her hand. They can say, stop, don't do something evil, as evil like this. So she says that nobody should see what I am going to do. That is why cover everything with the darkest smoke of hell. And I told you that once Macbeth calls for darkness, once Lady Macbeth calls for darkness, and this prayer is answered, because in the whole drama, everything that happens is under darkness. At this moment, Macbeth enters the stage, and Lady Macbeth cheers him by calling him Great Glamis, worthy Cawdor, greater than both, by the all hail hereafter. So I salute the Thane of Glamis, I salute the worthy Thane of Cawdor, and I salute somebody who is going to be greater than this. She obviously means becoming the king. Thy letters have transported me beyond this ignorant present, and I feel now the future is instant. Your letter has taken me to the future, and I find that it is not very long that we can achieve that future of becoming king and queen. Macbeth says, my dearest love, Duncan comes here tonight. He announces the arrival of Duncan. Lady Macbeth says, and when he goes hence, when is Duncan going to leave? Macbeth says, tomorrow as he purposes. Tomorrow it is his purpose to leave. Lady Macbeth says, oh, never shall sun that tomorrow see. Oh, never. Duncan is not going to see the sun of tomorrow. She has already made the plan of murdering Duncan. She says, your face, my Thane, is as a book where men may read strange matters. To underline, beguile the time, look like the time. So he says that, my lord, your face is looking like an open book. Anyone can read your expressions and understand what is cooking in your mind. In order to beguile, that means to fool the time, in order to fool the people at this time, look better. Look as if you are very cheerful, look as if you are very happy, and hide your real intentions behind your happy expression. Bear welcome in your eyes, your hands, and in your tongue. Look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it. Wonderful idea. She says that with your tongue, with your words, with your looks, with your manners, behave as if you are a welcoming host to Duncan. You are very glad that Duncan has come. But you should be actually like a flower bush which looks very beautiful from outside, but if you poke your hand inside, you will get the bite of the snake, because mostly snakes hide behind those bushes. So be the flower from outside, from inside that poisonous snake hiding behind the flower. So I told you that one of the basic themes of Macbeth is the theme of appearance versus reality. So you can see this theme is again highlighted here. Be the flower from outside and be the snake hidden inside. He that is coming must be provided for. Provided for is a pun. Provided for has been used in double meaning. He that is coming, Duncan who is coming, should be provided for. Provided for can mean arranged for food, comfort, luxury. Provided for can mean to finish off. So she is planning to finish off Duncan as well. And you shall put this night's great business into my dispatch. Just leave everything upon me. What I am going to do in the night, I will do it myself. No need to worry about it. Which shall to all our nights and days to come give solely sovereign sway and masterdom. So if we are able to complete the business of the night perfectly, which is the murder of course, then after this all our nights and all our days will pass in great happiness, as we will become the sovereigns, the kings. We will have the sovereign sway, the kingly power and masterdom in our hands. Macbeth says, we will speak further, we will speak later. Lady Macbeth says, only look up clear, to alter favor ever is to fear, leave all the rest to me. She says, okay, we are going to discuss this matter later, but as of now, just pretend to be happy, just keep a look of happiness on your face, and leave everything to me. I will conduct the business. So that's all for scene 5.